welcome to this media event with foreign ministers of Finland and Turkey. We have a translation, Turkish-English translation. For English, please turn to channel 1, and for Turkish, channel 2. Minister Valtonen.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to this press conference, which I'm so happy to be hosting together with my colleague and friend, Minister Hakan Fidan from Turkey. Thank you so much for the excellent discussions we had, and of course, in this time there isn't a lack of topics on the agenda. On the bilateral front, to start with that, we particularly highlighted the importance of trade and cooperation on so many fronts, also in our economic partnership. We have seen a rise in Finnish exports to Turkey, and I so welcome the entire Turkish delegation from the business side also visiting Finland at this moment. In times of insecurity and unpredictability, the importance of a free market, of free engagement and trade becomes all the more important. Now, Finland and Turkey are united by our commitment to transatlantic security. And again, I want to commend Turkey's position, also what comes to the war that Russia is waging against Ukraine. Indeed, Turkey has not only been committed in the past 4 years to Ukraine's territorial integrity, but has been very vocal about it ever since Russia illegally annexed Crimea. Indeed, upholding international law and principles such as territorial integrity and sovereignty of nations are very much at the core of also our partnerships. And also what I want to commend is Turkey's active role in mediating and finding just and lasting peace to the war that Russia is waging against Ukraine. From the Finnish perspective, I want to highlight that Russia, unfortunately, will probably be a long-term strategic threat to the entire transatlantic alliance, and therefore it is important not only to find a ceasefire and after that a lasting solution to the war in Ukraine, but also at the same time we have to keep up ramping up our defense and deterrence as the transatlantic alliance, and also in this regard we very much value the efforts by Turkey and also our strong partnership. Now, what comes to the Middle East, we very much appreciate the ceasefire that now has held for a few weeks, and we definitely hope that this will allow for further steps for the implementation of the phase 2, but also for finding a pathway towards the two-state solution. Now, it was very good to exchange on the most recent developments in this regard, and also on the summit on Monday on the International Stabilization Force in Gaza that Turkey hosted. And again, Finland is strongly committed to the two-state solution. There needs to be a long-term sustainable solution based on the international law, not only what comes to the situation and the people in Gaza, but also what comes to the West Bank. Now, finally, thank you so much again, Minister Fidan, for being here in this country of the white lilies. You haven't seen many outside because our weather is what it is in November. And last year when, together with President Alexander Stubb, I was visiting Ankara and Istanbul, we celebrated 100 years of our diplomatic ties, and I hope this will be a strong basis for the next 100 years. Thank you so much for being here.
Minister Fidan.
Well, thank you, and I will make my statement in Turkish, if you please.
Distinguished members of the press, first of all, I would like to thank my dear colleague, Elina Valtonen, for her hospitality. We had several meetings with my valued counterpart in international platforms. We exchange views, we have discussions, we have intense at times, and whenever we cannot meet, we make sure to exchange views on important topics via phone calls. And today, I have great pleasure in carrying out a bilateral visit to our friend and ally, Finland. And today, with herself and her team, we had very productive talks. And today, I will also be meeting with the Speaker of the Parliament of Finland, distinguished Jussi Halla-aho. And during my visit, I will participate in the event organized at the Finnish Parliament by a think tank as a speaker. And there we will be meeting with Finnish members of the parliament and starting with the members of the Turkish Friendship Group and other high-level officials. And yesterday I had the opportunity to get together with our Tatar brothers and sisters living in Finland. We are happy to see that Tatars maintain their own identity at one hand and also contribute to the social and cultural life of this country. Distinguished members of the press, during our talks today, we covered our bilateral relations in a comprehensive manner. We discussed the joint steps that we'll be taking in the upcoming period, and we are undertaking intense efforts to develop our economic relations. The trade volume between Turkey and Finland was realized at approximately $1.8 billion in 2024. We are ready for closer cooperation in areas such as information technologies and renewable energy. We believe that the Arctic region can present opportunities for our cooperation. Defense industry constitutes another area of our cooperation with Finland. As you know, we signed the Memorandum of Understanding on Defense Industry Cooperation last June. This memorandum opened the door for a new period between two countries for joint production, technology exchanges, and increasing our capabilities. We aim to further develop our defense industry cooperation through concrete projects of our institutions and companies. We consider this cooperation, which will reinforce NATO's deterrence, as also a step that will contribute to Europe's security and defense industry capacity. Distinguished members of the press, last year in December we held a meeting with the foreign ministers of Nordic countries on the occasion of the NATO meeting. We attach importance to deepening our dialogue on security issues with Nordic countries. We also addressed the topic of Europe's security with my valued counterpart, who is currently the 2025 chair of OSCE. Turkey is a NATO ally who provides critical contribution to Europe's security. And in this framework, it is of great importance that Turkey is included in EU's defense and security initiatives, including the SAFE mechanism. During our talks today, we also discussed relations between Turkey and EU as well, and I'd like to thank Finland for supporting our country's EU membership process since the very beginning. In this current period, there is a need for a perspective that will strengthen mutual trust, and EU needs to consider our relations, its relations with our country in a long-term, realistic and strategic perspective. And there is a need for a perspective that will strengthen mutual trust and cooperation. And in that regard, we consider it of utmost importance that the high-level dialogue mechanism are rendered effective and regular. Updating of customs union and progressing visa liberalization dialogue would serve for the interests of both parties. With regards to the Schengen visa processes, facilitatory steps taken in the recent period by the EU are indicative of a positive intention. We continue with our initiatives for the complete elimination of all difficulties in this matter. Distinguished members of the press, together with Finland, we strive to contribute to the efforts towards global peace and security. In that regard, we are co-chairs of the UN and OSCE groups of Friends of Mediation, and today we also address the war between Russia and Ukraine. And I'd like to thank Madam Minister when we are talking about Russia, Moina Kustaman, a book written by one of the former presidents of Finland had been gifted to me, and I had a chance to read the book, The Russian Idea, and I'd like to thank her for gifting me with this book once again. As Turkey, we believe that a just and lasting peace can only be achieved through diplomacy. Challenges will not change our resolute stance towards achieving peace through dialogue and negotiation. It is of great importance that such efforts reflect parties' minimum common denominators align with the dynamics on the ground and are shaped with a realistic understanding. We maintain our peace-building efforts with effective and constructive cooperation with our international partners. Another one of our agenda items today was the latest developments in Gaza. Since the announcement of ceasefire, approximately 250 Palestinians lost their lives during Israel's attacks. However, we believe that a ceasefire should continue despite all challenges. The next phase should be initiated and that the international community should fulfill their role, and Turkey is doing its best, especially at the United Nations. There are ongoing works right now for the implementation of the peace plan. There are intense negotiations and discussions that are ongoing. The delivery of international humanitarian aid is insufficient, and there are various talks on that as well, on how to make them more effective, and our work to this end continues. Distinguished members of the press, once again, I would like to thank our host, Minister Valtonen, for this productive talks and also for the contributions for our bilateral cooperation. I'd like to thank you once again in your presence.
Please raise your hands if you want to pose one. Lady to the right, go ahead.
I am Cansu with Turkish State Broadcaster TRT Haber. I would like to address my question to the Finnish Foreign Minister Valtonen. How do you assess Turkey's contribution to Europe's security? And also, in addition, how would you evaluate Turkey's potential support for and participation in the European Security Action Program? Ayrıca Bakan Fidan'a
I also would like to ask a question to Minister Fidan. There are high-level visits happening from European capitals to Ankara, and you've also carried out visits to the capital cities of European countries as well. And in that regard, you indicate that significant progress can be achieved within a short period of time if Turkey's resolute stance is reciprocated by the European Union. How do you consider Turkey's EU relations? Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for the question. And Finland does value Turkey's role as a security provider for Europe, and I should say an increasingly important security provider for Europe and the entire transatlantic alliance. We do face a very similar threat picture what comes to the threat against our alliance. And also, I think what has brought us so much closer over the course of the past few years when Finland has been a member in NATO is also our common approach to countering terrorism. Now, Finland has been right from the start a proponent for the Turkish future membership in the European Union. Back in 1999, when Finland held the EU presidency, we were not only open to the idea, but actually pretty proactive in that regard. Now that the enlargement file is already, let's put it this way, again proceeding from Europe's point of view, our position has not changed. Finland is very much in favor of merit-based enlargement, and that applies to each and every candidate country, because we do see that reforming and increasing awareness of such issues as a transparent market economy, ridding corruption, working on the rule of law reforms, human rights for each and every individual, All of these, which are requirements for EU membership, do benefit the candidate country already, on the pathway towards membership, and very much happy to support that. And finally, on your question on SAFE, Finland supports also Turkey's possibility to be able to participate as a partner equally, on equal terms, in defence industry cooperation, which we strongly need at this moment.
Distinguished members of the press, as you know, after every election, after our president is legitimately elected by the people, regarding our foreign policies, he provides a significant direction. And after the 2023 May presidential elections, our president indicated that the strategic journey of Turkey on the path towards EU membership did not change, and that there is a full objective of EU membership. That is the will expressed by our president. And as you know, our society, as long as certain conditions are met, provides extensive support to this aim. And essentially, when we look in terms of geostrategical relations and foreign relations, it's not only the world itself, but in Europe as well, we see that they are in a new strategic equilibrium. And especially with regards to the new U.S. foreign policy, when you look at the new U.S. foreign policy, rather than global interventionism, we see there is an understanding allowing the regional countries to cover their own problems. And in this European geography, as European countries, by getting together, both economic and political related issues, we need to solve them together. That should be the basis. And European Union is one of the best examples of regional ownership. And without Turkey, especially under the new conjuncture, will be lacking. And Turkey, without European Union, will be lacking a step without the European Union. This is our perspective. That is why European Union and Turkey, its existing integration process, without basing on any excuses, should be advanced as soon as possible. And we, as the government, as the state, are backing this with a strong will. In this new period, the European leaders reiterating their wills once again as valuable. And last week, distinguished German Chancellor Merz was in Turkey, and during that press conference, openly stated their support for Turkey's EU membership. And in that regard, the statements coming from the main European countries are important, provide an important start to overcome some of the blocked issues. As you know, in recent years, due to some of the decisions taken and some of the events that occurred, certain advancing on certain topics had not been possible. However, right now, there's a statement of will, a renewed statement of will on both parties, and the times also require dictating this once again. And as long as there's a statement of will, all other technical works, depending on time and professionalism, can be overcome and can be addressed. The important thing is that the European Union and Turkey provide a candid statement of will and continue onwards in this journey. And I see a new start emerging.
Thank you. Gentleman to the left, Helsingin Sanomat.
Question for Mr. Fidan. Finland hasn't yet recognized the state of Palestine. What are Turkish thoughts on that?
What are?
Turkish thoughts on Finland not recognizing the state of Palestine.
Tabii ki ben açıkçası Finlandiya'nın tanımasını.
Well, of course, I would have wished Finland to recognize. More than 150 countries, as you know, have recognized Palestine as a state, and I'm sure Finland has its own specific reasons, internal political dynamics. But right now, the fact that Finland is supporting two-state solution officially and supporting the ceasefire process and defending it, and the fact that they would be ready for a possible humanitarian aid is an important issue for us.
We do not have time for more questions, so thank you, ministers. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. And let me add as a final note, because the reason I sent the book by Mauno Koivisto, The Idea of Russia, to my dear colleague Hakan Fidan was because there's this, in one chapter it says that the only power the Russian Empire ever respected was the Ottoman Empire. Thank you so much.